Pennsylvania, the president says Russia is actually unhappy that he won the election on the heels of the very real warning from national security officials on Moscow's influence campaign. The president's critics, though, say it's too little, too late.
It's remarkable that the institutions are essentially moving around the leader, their leader, to execute these policies. These are things that should have been done immediately after 2016.
All right, here to discuss, National Security Attorney Bradley Moss and former CIA analyst, NYPD Intelligence Unit member Buck Sexton. Good to have you both with us tonight.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Okay, so there was a lot of snark that came after this briefing today where the left has been pushing the president to get serious about this. He floats out the team. They talk all about it. And then, you know, one article said that they produced no new orders. There was no real information. Essentially, they aren't taking this seriously. Then we have this tweet from Mark Warner, who's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee. He says, glad to see the White House finally do something about election security, even if it's only a press conference. Now, if only it was actually backed up by anything the president has said or done on Russia. And we find out today they have offered briefings to Senate Democrats on what's happening with the election. And Bradley, it sounds like they haven't taken it so far.
Yeah, well, you know, look, in full disclosure, I was once an intern for Senator Warner many years ago. The problem I think that Senator Warner and others have, and the concern they have here, is that there's no one seemingly in charge. There's no one running this. Certainly what we heard today in the briefing with these different officials, the DNI, the FBI director, individuals like that, we got great descriptions of what they're doing as an agency. That's great. We got caught flat-footed in 2016. They're doing better this time. That's great. But who's running it? When we had an Ebola scare a few years ago, we had someone be brought in to compile all the data, to be the person in charge, to give tasks. You do this. You handle this part. Who's running this time?
It seems like a lot of it is coming from Department of Homeland Security. We heard from Secretary Nielsen today. And also, we got to look at this letter from former Ambassador John Bolton, who is National Security Advisor. He says this. He outlined everything. If you want to see the letter, it's online. He talks about all the things they're doing. He says DH cybersecurity experts have conducted vulnerability assessments, provided expertise in network protection and incident response, and facilitated training and exercise for election officials. He says it's up to states, but we're equipping them every way we can. They've also readied themselves to provide rapid response to potential cybersecurity incidents. And again, he mentions, Buck, we're happy to brief the more sensitive classified nature of this to Senate Democrats. We're waiting.
Well, there's also two very important components of this problem. One is cyber hacking and intrusions, right? And that's where you can have these public-private partnerships and Facebook and others that are trying to do everything they can to make sure that there aren't actually Russian attempts to get into the servers or get into election voting machines. Even when they're air-gapped, there are some ways that you can still actually try to intrude on those. And then there's the propaganda aspect of this, which goes to the sock puppets on Facebook and Twitter and trying to spread fake news or false information. These are not problems that you will ever eliminate. I mean, this reminds me in many ways of the terrorism discussion because you're trying to mitigate risks and you are working in a vast federal bureaucracy with lots of different pieces, not always particularly nimble pieces, by the way, as somebody used to work for one of them, that are trying to do their best here. But everyone needs to understand that there is no universe in which there is no propaganda on the internet from foreign countries trying to intrude on us, that there are no efforts to do, by the way, pretty low-tech, unskilled hacking efforts, things like phishing, that rely on social engineering. You send someone an email and say, give me your password because I'm the IT guy for your network. Doesn't matter what DHS is doing. You could have the DNI sitting next to you. If you give somebody your password and you don't realize that their thing is actually in Cyrillic, you got a problem.
Yeah, and we've heard from DHS Secretary Nielsen about the way that she estimates a cyber attack and the danger of that versus a physical attack from a foreign country. Here's what she said just a couple days ago.
The threat has changed a lot. I worry a lot about cyber. I think the cyber attack surface is much bigger than the physical attack surface. It affects all of us, from a mom in a kitchen teaching her kids through a computer to a very advanced financial system.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Because it's clear that there is a massive problem.
Well, certainly. And like Buck was saying, there's an aspect of this that will never go away. The social media disinformation, that'll always be there. But there has to be some measure of leadership here. There has to be a true, consistent message. And I think the one problem this administration has and what they're seeing in terms of how they're fighting back with this media narrative is that you get these briefings like you had today, which were great, which gave what the public needed in terms of reassurance. But then 3 or 4 hours later, the president goes to a rally and he starts talking about how, oh, it's all Russia hoax. Oh, Putin just wants to be my friend.
I mean, that's different than cyber intrusions.
Yes,
I mean, the president's going to continue to say, there's no evidence of that.
The president is very clear that there was no coordination between his campaign, between the president himself, and any of these Russian actors that we've seen in the past. But I think that you also have to look at the broader context here, and that is that the Democrats that are complaining right now, and you saw Mark Warner's tweet and others, it seems like the president is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, right? I mean, he's got the most senior national security officials possible giving a detailed description to the degree they can. They're not going to talk about all their cyber capabilities. We all know that. Doing everything in their power to tell the American people, we're on this. We've got this. We're trying to make this election as clean and as good to go as possible. You also have to remember that in 2016, the Obama administration decided not to do more, and a lot of people look at it and say that was a political calculation. Now, you could say it was the right one or the wrong one for them to make, but it was a political calculation. It was not a national security calculation. They decided to pass up that opportunity right then and there. And keep in mind that however this election goes, Shannon, I have a feeling some people are going to be unhappy with the measures no matter what we do.
I think you're right. Buck and Bradley, great to have both of you in tonight. Thank you.